Now we move to 1900s. We have the Spanish Kansas flu. And I want to iterate that one. Kansas flu. The Spanish flu originated in a Kansas military base. And the first person to come down with this Kansas Spanish flu was a person who worked with a radio. Now, most people don't know, when the radio first rolled out, people started losing their sense of smell, losing their sense of taste. They started having headaches. They started having all types of issues. Radio frequencies were impacting the health of people. So as they rolled out the radio and World War I came about in 1919, the radio started going all over the place in the places of war, and people started having radio wave sickness. Radio wave sickness. Now, I highly recommend everybody look up the symptoms of radio wave sickness. It was actually so much, or there was so much radio wave sickness at that time, that they had to change the terminology to other terms, known as influenza, known as autoimmune, known as all these different things, because people were having all these issues with these radio frequencies. Now, it's interesting too, because Marconi, the creator of the radio, actually died of multiple heart attacks after he created the radio. And what's also interesting is there was Mr. Stubenfield in there, which nobody ever talks about, who actually created a phone that could communicate through the earth, so you didn't have to use the radio. You could just use the earth to communicate. He actually took a rod, stuck it into the earth, and he could communicate between him and his family just using the earth's energy. Mr. Stubenfield, 1902. So when we look at this, we see that the radio rolls out, people start getting all types of symptoms and side effects, and then what the solution comes to be is one of these, going into the people. But what's interesting is there's no germs jumping all over to create this illness. It's the technology which is being placed all over the place and then replicating this sickness. So now we sit there and think, okay, well then Rockefellers who created these, and we're putting those into people, because when you get into it, you get into how Louis Pasteur, and everybody knows the story of Louis Pasteur, he created all of these. Louis Pasteur, on his deathbed, said that the terrain is everything and germ theory is incorrect. So the creator of these, who are putting them into the people and harming lots of people, says on his deathbed that he was all wrong, but these still kept going into the people. So you have 1919, you have this Kansas Spanish flu. They used the word Spain because they wanted to do propaganda to keep pushing this narrative to say that it was all the Spanish fault and we need to go to war. So what happened was you have that 1919 situation happen, and then you have this large push of telling people to wear face coverings. What's interesting is during that time, people told people to eat oranges. But as I've said, we don't ever hear that anymore in 2023 because oranges don't yield a lot of profit. We hear something like this because this turns to profit. It continues people to keep going, right? So then you keep going in this system. So now what's interesting is now we move in the timeline to 1923. And this is the Lancaster study.